I realize that I'm not communicating well, no matter how much I try. It is physically impossible for me to share my thoughts given the complexity of our brains. Your brain would have to be more like mine to get what I'm proposing. As you listen to this, you will form a different impression than I intend. There were only 2 people who I talked to in the past often enough for my best thoughts to make some sense to them. If I could go back and experience the thoughts they had while listening to me, I would probably be appalled at how little what they heard resembled what I was trying to communicate. We are all alone in our skulls, and since we can't check other people's mental experience, we can imagine an impossible communication. I feel more alien than most people because I'm willing to admit this impossibility, and I'm not complaining. The variety I want in people makes miscommunication inevitable. If I have stopped trying to find people like me, that is a sign of maturity, a readiness for a world that has more to offer. This improvement of society will result in a smaller percentage of people who will care what I think. I don't know how many people will understand the benefit of this reduced percentage of like-minded people, where most people have their own stories and don't want mine. We normally learn how to act in the world by finding other people to emulate. I didn't. There were no people who I saw as good examples for me to follow. This made my world bigger and bleaker. When you can't find what you need locally, you must look further afield. This is the basis for insight processing, and that's largely how I think about matters that concern me. I am an outsider by nature. Who I wanted to become was never narrowed down to a small number of influences that I emulated. Now that I can watch things on the internet, I can select my influences from far afield more than in the past. But no one even knows how biased the recommendation algorithms are, which makes me angry. I live nothing like the intellectuals I watch on YouTube. My sense of myself as alien protects me from their world as a strange outsider with my own judgment. I depend on being divergent to maintain some self-esteem. This is not new to me. As a young man, I lived in the MacArthur Park area of Los Angeles. I wouldn't have chosen my few friends, but they were better than none. I don't know what I would think of them if we met again now. Back then I told them that I didn't like people and that I couldn't make an exception for them. Adopting my values set them free from the poor regard of the people who rejected them. With me, they could feel that they were special, people who the world wasn't ready for. I did all the work to establish our difference. We were malnourished, me more than the others, but we were also incomparable. It must have been difficult for some people to understand how our aberrant behavior could make us feel better about ourselves. It's probably not that unusual for people to act against other people's norms, to demonstrate that those other people have no dominion over whatever they will do next. Back then I slept in some unusual places, in an alley, on the roof of an apartment building, under a freeway overpass, in a trash bin filled with paper refuge. I once tried to sleep in a tree like a chimpanzee, but I was too afraid of falling to relax. I lived in the attic of a 3-story house on Alvarado Street for a while. Sometimes I would use a rope that I hung down the back of the building to climb up to my room. A neighbor came over to talk to the occupants of this house about our behavior. He pulled out a gun to threaten us, and we laughed at him. We weren't making good choices, but we felt that we were in the world as much as anyone else, even though we had little money and no advantages from our families. We were divergent enough that other people couldn't impose their values on us. They couldn't make us feel small for failing to become more like them. I suspect that I will feel more and more alien until I die. To some extent, this may be socioeconomic, but it's also just who I am and what I care about. When I look for more intellectually stimulating input, I become a consumer, not a participant. I can't become like the people I watch. I live in a different world, and I would rather be alien than a passive observer of superior people. No one else seems to understand how I feel in that regard. It is a feeling of being subtracted from the world. But why should I feel like that? I can go walk in the woods and nature will treat me the same as anyone else. What is most important to me and what I'm proposing may cause you to lose interest. I don't know what will happen in your mind when you get to the part that I've worked hardest on and feel most strongly about. It may not hold your attention. I don't think it will. As a child, I could convince another child, if I got him alone, of the validity of my ideas. I was terrified of groups, but fearless regarding individuals. Because I didn't acquire my beliefs through lessons taught by better informed people, my insights were like mental tricks that I could make appear true. Later, if I initially impressed adults with a statement new to them, they would eventually discover that I wasn't well educated and they rejected me as an imposter. Becoming better educated didn't change this. My professors wanted me to imitate them to show them that I was paying attention and could learn, but they didn't think things through to the extent that I did. They told me that language is socially acquired. It is, but they didn't understand that this social acquisition of language doesn't set any limits on what can be discovered through language by an individual alone, an individual getting information from wherever he can. He wouldn't have to be part of any group that would bias his thoughts. It's entirely possible to come to a profound understanding that no one else will follow. This will result in loneliness that trying to communicate with other people will only make worse. If you suffer from this loneliness, you may never forgive society for exposing you to it. Language will always include this possibility, but my professors never considered this. It went against their belief that we must always learn from others. That was their job description, so they were biased toward this idea even if it was wrong. Popularizing this belief was how they succeeded in their academic careers. Many were smart enough to know that this popular view was socially fortuitous, but it wasn't intellectually rigorous. I've always been lonely for someone I am yet to meet and never will. I may notice someone through the window of their house may be reading while sitting in a chair with a floor lamp illuminating the pages of the book. From the sidewalk, this person looks as much like someone I can talk to as anyone else, and as I keep walking, that impression remains with me. I don't imagine all the forms of conversation this person may want that I can't bear to take part in. I feel that something's terribly wrong with common social assumptions and that the internet has presented a whole new variety of social assumptions. I need everything that language entails, all the vocabulary and syntax to say a few things. I need all the people that a complex and confusing society can produce to perhaps meet one or two whose company I enjoy. Much that might alarm us in nature, in the natural world, doesn't produce a pause for reflection on the internet. There is no ethical moment in which the temporality of a given platform is delayed for reflection in this collapsed space with its relentless temporality. We can't continue work as usual and have ethical reflection on what we're doing, and the algorithms don't stop. Their biases are adopted from us, along with new ones we don't see. How do I become divergent from that centralized semi-intelligence? Being relegated to nature to find some relief wouldn't be fair to anyone. Even before the internet became a solution for all loneliness, stories I'd written 5 years back would be just as likely, as far as I could tell, to be accepted by editors. My next 5 years of writing will make no difference in that regard. At the end of that span, it will occur to me that what I wrote 10 years back is just as likely to impress an editor as anything I've written since. So why did I keep trying for so long when I've got a great surplus of writing like a warehouse of goods few people want? I continually add to this stockpile like a broken machine with no feedback mechanism to tell it to stop other than death.